Welcome everyone to the Knitting Way Book Club. We're on episode 28 now and giving final reflections on chapter 6. Valerie's going to start us off with our knitting tip today.
Hello, everyone. So my knitting tip is, well, inherently I'm lazy. Some people call it efficient, but it's really kind of lazy. I like to find the quickest path to the end result in general. And I'm making an asymmetrical triangle shawl right now. So the directions say knit for a specific number of rows and knit, you'll end up with a specific number of stitches. But because it's this asymmetrical shape, it meanders, right? It changes, which I'm really enjoying. But my tip is that part of my direction is on the left side, knit two together at the end of one row.
Okay.
And I don't like to count as a general rule. It's just not fun to me and it's difficult. So my shortcut, my hack, is that I know how many rows I need, and I know that there's a knit two together at every end of a row. So I put a marker from the left side of my knitting to the middle. You know, let's say I need 53 stitches. So I put my marker from 53 to here. And then as my marker moves, I'm decreasing towards the end of my row.
So you have a visual aid.
I have a visual aid. I put my marker, and because I'm decreasing on the left, my marker is moving. And I know when my marker is off of my work, then I've done my 53 stitches. So it's like the complement of knitting or counting up to 53. I'm just doing the backwards version. But for me, it's easier. I get to just focus on the knitting and I don't have to worry about counting every row. I don't have to worry about knitting past my 53 stitches because I've got that marker that helps me to remember. So that
sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds really clever, creative. It reminds me of Elizabeth Zimmerman's reading her comments. It seems like she is all about like whatever idea you can think of to make your knitting easier, go for it. It doesn't have to be an official suggestion in a book or something you heard from someone else. A lot of times you yourself can think of a clever idea to make your knitting easier so you can enjoy the part of it that you like. You've made the counting part easier, it sounds like.
For me, that's what works.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
So I love that your broad general tip this week is, you know, do what works for you. And, you know, we're all clever. We all know what works for us and what doesn't work. So flip it on its head. Yeah. So what did you think about the end of chapter 6?
I loved it. I love the statement about making a daily practice of knitting and seeking God that way increases our creativity. It's a holy practice. But specifically, I wanted to focus today on page 140, back toward the earlier part of the chapter.
Okay.
I'll read a section about the doula's best gift. A doula is an aid for a person giving birth. Pam England, a nurse midwife, tells the story of a knitting midwife whose unusual form of labor support was sitting in the corner of the room and knitting. England points out that in relation to giving birth, quote, whatever its form, genuine support comes from a positive intention to hold space for the mother in the belief that she is moment by moment discovering how to give birth.
Mm.
And that just that quiet presence is something that I've really come to learn is so important. For example, when someone has lost a loved one,
Mhm.
you should never say to them, call me if you need me.
Mm.
You should just call them, say
Mm.
you're coming over, and don't worry about what you say to them. A person grieving doesn't need you to say anything. A person grieving just wants you to sit next to them. And it's when you sit next to a grieving person, whether the grief is huge or maybe just small, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
we have just little days of grieving because the day has gone really badly. But sitting there with that person, like this midwife, it gives them the confidence to moment by moment find that way of living with that loss. You're
Mhm.
sort of giving that person the confidence, by being quiet,
Yeah.
this little knitting quiet confidence that you're exuding from yourself. It tells the
Mm.
other person, I believe that you can find your way.
Yeah.
I lost my dad about 15 years ago. And that's when I finally understood what it meant to grieve. And I understood then what grieving people need. And this book just brought it all so real for me.
We don't talk about these subjects, these ideas, these topics in the open. And so I feel really vulnerable talking about it with you. I feel vulnerable talking about it on social media.
Okay.
And that's living the practice of what this book is saying. It's
Mhm.
the tangible expression of these ideas. And I think it's important. I think that it's a way that I can show up for myself. I think it's a way that we can show up for each other.
Mm.
And just because it's hard doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it.
Well, say whatever you feel comfortable saying. How are you feeling right now? What sparked all that? And you can decide to edit it out or not.
Yeah, I mean, just witnessing what you're talking about, and you're talking about the big loss, and I'm feeling the little loss, the little daily things that don't happen, or
Well, I included that. Those are important
of
too.
course. It's just so funny that, like, again, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Are
Yeah.
you missing your family now? Now
No.
that they're gone? Okay, it's not that.
Not that. Yeah, no.
Okay. But you're reminded of a loss.
Yeah, well, I mean, rejection is loss. There's so many different ways that we can experience grief, and death is one of them. But then this intangible idea of the death of an idea
Mhm.
that we, had, that we believed in, that we were working on. Like, we don't
Yeah.
talk about that either in the world.
Yeah, I guess to me, like the very last thing she says in the book encapsulates everything.
Oh, then
That
let's
list,
read that.
that list at the end, there's two important things. I am not the center of the universe. I matter.
Yeah.
Somehow, it's like those are the two ends of complete humility and yet complete presence in the moment, I guess, or something.
Mhm.
Because when we're young, we're screaming, I matter. And we think we're the center of the universe. And then when you get older and you find that place to finally be happy in your own skin.
Mhm.
I don't know which comes first. Then you can finally not be the center of the universe. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to be the worst kind of person to be around is like, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. Oh, I'm nothing. I'm nothing.
Yeah.
I'm nothing. That's just as much being in the center of the universe, as someone screaming to pay attention to me,
Of
to them.
course. Yeah.
And people really enjoy being around those who are quietly confident in their own skin and don't have to call attention to themselves all the time. It sort of gives you the space to let others be them.
Yeah.
And it's taken me my whole life up to this point to sort of start to understand that.
Mm.
So I feel like it's the essence of everything. And that's what this book is so good at. I feel like I'm always saying that. Those words are the essence of everything. She's just nailed the most important truth on the head.
Right? Yeah. And I think that's where this book just sneaks up on me. Like you think, oh, it's a knitting book, la la la, and there's universal truths buried in, and it's not even buried, it's just there in plain sight.
But sometimes it's surprising.
Yeah.
Right? I feel the sneaking up. Sometimes it comes at the end of a story and you're like, oh, wow, that's the point.
There's a lot of aha moments for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
You said something jumped out for you at the end of the chapter?
I think that we're sort of on the same track. It strikes me on the last page that I can't tell who's talking, but she says, I made a reminder list in my own journey on the knitting way. And for the record, she capitalizes K in knitting and W in way as if it is a proper noun. So in this way, she's referring to the knitting way, not only the book, but the knitting way as a philosophy or a life approach. And her list says, small actions matter. Every action results in a consequence. Mm-hmm. Remember to make the small actions. Small things done in time build. A mistake is a lesson. Obstacles and enemies are the greatest teachers. I am not the center of the universe, and I matter. Very poignant for me today. This list. So we're done with chapter 6, and next week we'll start chapter 7, mind and body and the role of knitting.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Remember, you're a knitter. You can handle anything. Mm-hmm. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.